Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Preparing for the Outsiders and First Dog on the Moon. Sunday, 4th of December, 2016.
Time now for Outsiders. I'm Barry Cassidy, and you're not. And they are Simon Creer. He's Australian editor of BuzzFeed, author of 88 Reasons Why Australia is the Craziest. David Hunt, he's an author as well and historian. His first book, Gert, did extremely well. He's now got a sequel. It's called True Gert. Georgina Downer is with us too. She's from the admin committee of the Victorian Liberal Party. Welcome all.
Good morning.
Hello, Jonathan. How's Sydney, you Sydney people?
Oh, it's beautiful. The sun is shining, the koels are singing.
Aha! Yes, well, we have them down here in Melbourne too, I'll have you know. So, interesting times in the Trump transition. Now, one of the things that was doing great guns in social media was this little snippet. This was a panel CNN was running, well, asking people about voter fraud.
Do you think that 3 million illegal people voted?
I believe in California that there were illegals that voted.
How many?
I don't. To tell you the truth, nobody really knows that number.
But do you think 3 dozen or do you think 3 million?
I think there was a good amount because the president told people that they could vote, and it happened in Nashua. We caught some people that they went into Nashua and they said, the president said I could vote. I'm here illegally.
Did you hear President Obama say that illegal people could vote?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I heard it this morning, actually.
Yes, I did hear it.
Tell me, where?
You can find it, Google it. You can find it on Facebook.
There you go, Simon Creer. The fake news thing continues, and I guess what fake news needs most of all for its success is people prepared to believe it.
That's right, and people definitely believe it. We had an analysis on BuzzFeed after the election that said that fake news did better on Facebook than the news from the 19 major news outlets combined. And so there's a huge audience there. Facebook aren't doing a good job at all of policing what's on their site and not really taking any responsibility for it. And so if you want to believe something, if you want to believe that millions of undocumented people voted or that Donald Trump actually won the popular vote, then it doesn't really matter that the facts say otherwise. You can find your biases confirmed.
It's wonderfully liberating time, Georgina, to be able to... Anything is true now, which is a tremendous thing.
Well, I think these types of conspiracy theories, be it UFOs and aliens, have been down to whether 3 million illegals voted or not. They've been with us for many years. I don't think this is a terribly new phenomenon, although the Facebook aspect of it, of course, is. My view really is that if it's really up to individuals themselves to do their due diligence. We can't there's not going to be an accepted set of facts that you go to one website and these are the absolute incontrovertible facts. We are all free thinkers and we live in a free society, and we should be able to take that individual responsibility to judge for ourselves whether we think that the journalists and the reporters have responsibly assessed the information and reported it accurately.
You're a historian, David. Is there such a thing as facts?
Oh, I think facts are ultimately contestable, and you will have many different perspectives on the one set of facts, and there are many, many truths in history as there are in life. What I find concerning about this sort of echo chamber for your own views that we have at the moment and that social media encourages is that you're actually fed the views by the algorithms that run Facebook.
Yep.
You're fed what you already believe and want to know. So it's not as if you are a consumer who is open to all sorts of stories that you weigh dispassionately and independently. You're being fed exactly what people think you want to hear.
Yes, which has a certain circular and accelerating effect. Georgina, speaking of what you want to hear, I mean, the news from the US overnight this weekend has all been about that Taiwan phone call. Now, you're a woman with experience as a diplomat. This would have caused conniptions in the State Department, I'm assuming.
I think it would have caused serious conniptions in the State Department, but this is now the foreign policy according to Donald Trump, and he's going to do it his way.
He's not even president.
Well, there you go. He's starting early. Look, he's clearly not going to be constrained by the usual diplomatic niceties and conventions. And as he rightly said, the US has a significant military and economic relationship with Taiwan. Why not? talk to the Taiwanese president. He certainly isn't advocating for an abandonment of the 40-year one China policy of the United States. So I don't think we're going to see that at all. But I do think he has tapped into a sentiment that the US is not going to be kowtowing, so to speak, to China. It's going to conduct itself in a way that suits its own interests. And I mean, look, it's risky, but that said, what's China really going to do? They've protested, sure, but their interest is in a strong, healthy economic relationship with the United States.
And that's an international mutual interest. I mean, Simon Creer, is it time we got a bit funkier with foreign affairs? I mean, are we...
I think Trump's basically promised to be unpredictable. He's set out that he thinks American foreign, absolutely, foreign policy should be more unpredictable. He wants to keep people on his toes. He's started as he means to go on before he's even sitting in the hot seat, so to speak. And I think that, like, certainly his relationship, he's going to redefine the relationship with China that successive administrations have worked very hard to find a balance with. And I think, for us in our region, the moves he makes, whether or not he's going to be, being involved in discussions around the South China Sea or his desire to bring manufacturing back to America, I think it's going to have a huge impact. And I think it's very interesting to see how far he goes into his administration. Is he still going to conduct his foreign policy via tweets? It seems that every time he tweets, he sets off this huge cascading, we're having a big internal discussion at BuzzFeed. Do we report every tweet? And these tweets are designed sometimes to take attention away from things he doesn't want us looking at. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see once he gets into the White House if he's going to take over the POTUS account. I don't know what's going to happen to real Donald Trump, but it's going to be really interesting to see if he's going to be firing off tweets at like 5 a.m.
He'll sign him off with initials like Kevin Rudd, so with him or the staff. But the tweet thing, David, is interesting because in this Taiwan kerfuffle, of course, it was the explanation that came from the Trump team came from the real Donald Trump Twitter account saying the president called me.
Yeah, well, which makes all the difference, doesn't it? I mean, I think we've got a clickbait president in waiting here, and that's scary. I think too many people are trying to find method in his madness, and I personally subscribe to the theory that there's a lot of madness with perhaps not a lot of method going on. And I think the risk that this poses for global stability, there's the apocryphal ancient Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. And the Chinese love a degree of stability and predictability in their international relations, and that's provided for a reasonably comfortable world order for the last 3-4 decades. And I think we perhaps may be moving into uncharted waters where somebody's probably building an island right now.
Well, yes, indeed. Outsiders with you, Simon Creer, David Hunt and Georgina Downer. And speaking of interesting times, that certainly applies to the Australian Parliament, where a lot got done last week amidst a fair bit of kerfuffle in the upper house.
Insufficiently defined and overly broad discretionary powers. Inappropriately reverses the onus of proof in certain circumstances.
Yes, indeed. It was the week that brought us the onus of truth, which presumably is where you put the suppository of wisdom. Simply guessing. But Georgina, the outtake from the week was significant achievement by the government. They would have to think that as the year finishes, they've ticked their boxes.
Yeah, it was a great week for the government. Some really significant achievements. Look, the deal they did on the ABCC and the introduction of the...
It's quite a deal.
Yeah, look, and it's not the deal I would have liked to have seen, but it was the deal they could do with the Senate that the public dealt them, and that's the reality. Like John Howard did with the GST and the negotiations with the Democrats, you cannot always get 100% of what you want, but 70% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Which Simon Creer raises the position that increasingly the ALP is taking, and whether slowly but surely that sort of absolute oppositionism that Bill Shorten has been running is perhaps being left behind by events.
Well, they've worked very hard this year since they came back, Labour, to kind of try and obstruct absolutely everything. And I think it'd be quite hard to see that this very kind of watered down ABCC bill could really be seen as a victory. I think, the Royal Commissions, the double dissolution election, it's taken a very long time for this legislation to be on the books for several years to actually pass. And, if this is the achievement that Turnbull's going to feel pleased about going into Christmas, I don't think it's a huge achievement, to be honest. Also, it's going to take several years before it's actually much of this legislation is enacted. By that stage, we'll be well into an election cycle. I think it's definitely interesting taking stock. Sean's come out and felt very much like he almost had a victory out of this election. Now he didn't. He doesn't have the numbers, and Turnbull's managed to get legislation through. So I think that there'll be a lot of taking stock and seeing where they're going to go next year.
I mean, deals have been done, David, and Tony Abbott failed in this. Look, Malcolm Turnbull has managed to bring off a compromise and get the thing passed.
Credit where credit's due. I mean, there was the commentariat was criticising Abbott for his inability to negotiate with a hostile Senate. And now there's criticism of Turnbull for negotiating and not getting 100% of what he wanted, which I think is pretty unfair. And Turnbull is dealing, and the coalition are dealing with a very, very difficult political landscape there. You've got Darren Hinch, who's like a policy whack-a-mole. You hit him on the head and he pops down and then he pops out of another hole. I mean, four sets of numbers on backpackers in 4 days. Yeah. And look, I think it's been an impressive week for the coalition, only overshadowed by, unfortunately for them, all the good news goes away with a story of George Christensen, looking like a Teletubby who's just wandered onto the set of 50 Shades of Grey.
Or as Magda Jabansky, one of my Lezo mates.
Yes, and I think the timing's a little unfortunate. I think it sucked some of the good news out of the coalition's work.
A really interesting story, nonetheless. But
Yeah.
and Georgina, I mean, I think this is interestingly too. I mean, we mentioned George Christensen. I mean, the person in all that mayhem in the Senate, the one area of the Senate that looked stable and coherent was Pauline Hanson.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that she has Bill Shorten and the Labor Party to thank for that. They had flim flamming over the backpack attacks, and she stood pretty firm to her principles on the
And
ABC.
stuck to a consistent line through that process.
Absolutely. She's showing herself to be very experienced. She's a much, I think, more effective political operator than she was 20 years ago when she was in Parliament. So, this may be the making of Pauline Hanson now.
This has a way to run. We shall see. Look, thanks to our chatters this morning outside of the Simon Creer.
Okay, starting a new video.